Hi, this is Table for Two. I'm Nekia, and I'm here with Ronald Melencio. He is a board game creator. But first, Ron is a college graduate. He is an engineer and got into technic or tech. Is that what you would say? Tech.
Yeah, I'd say tech.
And now he's a board game creator. Um, we've had him on on our we've interviewed Ron before because he has so much work that he's done, so many games that he's created, and we're always excited to see him up to something new. We want to hear from him. But Ron, I have a question for you. Well, first of all, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks for interviewing me. Thanks, Nikki.
Oh, I'm so happy. So, my first question for you is, with all those things that I said about you, that's pretty accurate, right? You went to school, you became a software engineer, then
Right.
became in tech. Um, has there always been this creativity thing? Like, you're an engineer. Is there a thread that's been going through the whole thing that led you to board games, or is board games kind of an outside thing to release some creativity for you?
I've never really thought that there was a connection because doing my background in software engineering felt very kind of do this job and kind of produce this output. Whereas I saw in board game design and creation in a much more open-ended, fluid, although I would say I have discussed with other engineers in the past, and they would say there's a lot more intertwined. But that's what I had initially thought. But I think looking back now, I think there's a lot of building blocks that people who have attempted making games could notice that software engineers could probably notice those parallels. And so I guess I would say that there is some type of skill or interest in building and creating in software engineering that I could see in the creation of board games as well. I will caveat though that there are so many different parts of the game creation process that whether you're an artist or whether you're, just a creative from the start, I know someone who did stage plays, who became a board game designer. And I do think that there are so many different aspects of the board game creation process that no matter where you come from, like there's always like you bring something to the table that could help.
I like that. Well, how far do you want to take this as far as making board games? Like, do you have a vision
Well,
for the future?
I mean, everyone's motivations vary and kind of like big picture goals. I mean, bottom line, everyone just wants to do something that they think is fun and to put something on the table that people could enjoy. For me personally, I do see myself taking it more professionally, which I could talk about too, since I
Yeah,
have
talk about it.
entered more into a development. So, in design, in the creation process, there's various different roles. I've done board game design primarily. I've shifted over to board game development, and actually,
Can you can you say what's the difference? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't
oh
know what the
yeah.
difference is.
No, that's a great question. And even then of itself, there's a lot of overlap between the two roles.
Mhm.
I think my best attempt at is well, pick a game, pick any game. What's your favorite game, or what's the game you played like recently? Is there another?
Well, I'll just say Monopoly because little boy just invited me to play Monopoly yesterday. I didn't have time, but
Okay, okay.
that's a game.
Monopoly is an example that everyone is familiar with, so I think that's a great one to go off of.
Okay.
So you could imagine that the design, if anyone has asked, how did that game come about? Now
Hmm.
there is actually recorded, documented, uh, you know, in, it's what is it?
Evidence,
Yeah,
proof.
like there's like documents that kind of show what the creation of Monopoly came about.
Hmm.
But at a fundamental level, you could imagine that whoever the creator was thought about like I want to make a game that the original inception of the game is to almost provide a critique of what how capitalism is. And so that in of itself could be kind of a top level conceptual design of the game. Like I want a game that's that's driven by money, that's driven and emphasizes what capitalism is and or what can become. So you could think of that as kind of the vision of the game, which is
Mm,
primarily
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
which kind of dictates a lot of the kind of the design parts of the game. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
then when you think about the development, you're really looking at, okay, how do I take that main concept and put it in a form that's playable, that's fun, that's enjoyable, that's financially feasible to manufacture. And so when we start talking about things about, okay, are we gonna make it with cards? Are we gonna make it with these components? Are we gonna make it, are players gonna go from point to point, or are they gonna go around the circle? There's all these key parts that people know about Monopoly, but that people had to have made decisions about what those key parts are. Are those parts fun? Are those parts interesting? Did it make sense to put like those railroads at the different sides of the board? Did you have to collect 200 when you pass go? Why not 300? Why not $500? And so there's all these like different like creation aspects that a development on the development side you consider. Now, I will say that there's a lot of overlap between the two. In fact, it could almost be one person who does it end to end, where one person just takes it from start to finish, from the design to the development to almost to production. But that's it's a whole other topic. But if you wanted to segment out kind of those individual pieces of that process, that's one way to look at it.
Let me see if I got you. Like the developer is thinking about all of the small pieces that make the whole thing a whole, and is the designer the one making that look good? Making that, what's the
The
difference?
the designer is thinking more about what the vision and the experience of the game should be. So going
Okay.
back to Monopoly, where it's an emphasis on money, it's an emphasis on wealth and wealth accumulation. And then you have the developer who does more of a, what rules within the game will kind of best invoke that experience.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
where, so that could be something like if I acquire a property and then if someone lands on that property, they have to pay rent to me. So that kind of invokes that. So that
Mm,
invoke it. So,
okay.
and there
Now,
are definitely other roles. Sorry to say, but
no,
there's also other roles within the process, from graphic design to art, being an artist, to the production part. And but in terms of like the initial and creation of the game, those are kind of like the key roles and responsibilities.
I've heard it said that if you're gonna be a board game designer or creator, it's not a roadmap to wealth usually. So how do you rectify that?
So that's a very correct observation that I think a majority of folks would agree. I think, I mean, there's so many aspects to this, but I think the main part is if you look at the industry as a whole and kind of the size of the industry, and not just specific to North America, but you could look at this in Western Europe or even East Asia or even globally. So there's various ways you could look at that. Um, but games of itself is still relatively small and niche, and it's all relative. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would agree it's a lot smaller than digital games,
Hmm.
books, print, movie and
Hmm.
entertainment. So I mean, so because of that, there's the pie, if you will, is still relatively small. And because of other aspects such as a low barrier to entry, which in a way is good, meaning anyone could just think of an idea, put something on paper, get it on the table. May not play as elegantly as, a final product, but it still essentially plays. So if anyone has, had fun growing up making rules for games, I mean, you've made a game. You're technically a designer at that point. And but because of those reasons, uh, it is true that making money relative to, again, it's all relative, depends on where you live in the world. I'm in California, as opposed to maybe like people in the Midwest. Like just how when you compare it to like what other options are there to kind of have that type of comfortable way of living.
Mm.
Games is definitely a challenge.
Well, how do you rectify that? Do you have to have a job?
So I think I'm doing it pretty much full time.
Okay.
But that's relatively unique, I would say. I would say maybe I was gonna say 10%, but I would even probably say less than 10% of people actually do it full time. So a
Mm.
lot of people just, have their 9 to 5, W-2 contract job, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that I am just a couple months ago have taken up a small contract project. So I'm getting paid to make games, which is fun to say. And but that is still not as common as it is in the industry. A lot of the times
Okay.
people are just making games on the side, maybe making some money off of it, and still working. Like
Are you making good money at this, or did you just do good at saving so that you could do this now?
Uh, I think I'm a pretty simple person, so I don't have too many expenses. I try to kind of live very simple. So I think I was able to have some cushion to be able to
Mm,
do this. I mean, things
okay.
things might change in the future, but as of now,
Sure.
I'm happy that
Yeah.
I'm able to do
I
this.
might need to interview you on how to survive financially while you pursue your real dreams.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think
Yeah.
I
You
have some
sound
fun.
like an expert, to be honest.
I wouldn't say expert, but I have
Okay.
experience in
Practice.
it.
Yes. Well, I have one other question for you. Do you see purpose to your games outside of just making them to have fun?
Oh man, such a good question.
Thank you.
I like I really appreciate I've seen games and I really appreciate how they go beyond just a game. Whether they're teaching something that's actually historically accurate. So you're not just, putting a game and putting some historical
Mm,
spin on it, but there's some like deep respect and research for that history. So I've seen that. I've seen games that try to represent these underrepresented groups. So it's almost
mm,
like celebrating these minority groups that in a respected and authentic way. So again,
hmm.
not just putting some type of like theme on it without really like understanding that. And so I think it's great that over the years there are now cultural consultants that are involved in these games to
Oh,
really
cool.
show that people who make these games wanna put like a lot of care into them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
as for me, like, because like I do want to put, I would love to put more thought, like a deeper thought into those games. In fact, like there was one that we were talking about before this interview, that a lot of people said that could do well in a therapy setting that was almost like
Oh,
very
Misery Loves Company.
Misery Loves Company.
Yeah, I could
And
use that game to help couples for
uh,
sure.
yeah, and for those who don't know, it's a game where we're really just sharing like these real experiences among each other
Hmm.
in a a silly fun game format. And I've in my playtests and in my pitches, and people have said that they could see these in a therapy setting.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really, like real, like being like emotionally vulnerable and sharing in a safe space, right? And while having fun and laughing about it.
Yeah.
And so
It reminds
um
me of Never Have I Ever for some reason.
oh
Like,
sure. Yeah,
like, I have. Yeah.
it has those vibes. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for the most part, just putting something on the table and seeing people have fun and enjoy it and
It's
have
important
this
enough. Huh?
moment, this shared experience, I think has been just kind of like I think that's everyone's like it's like motivations and wantings and like to kind
Okay.
of
Because
to get into this.
honestly, when I looked at some of your games, what I noticed was it actually looks like you could use it for team building and find out how each part of
Sure.
your, like say your work group is playing this
Sure.
game, and you see who's gifted in different areas and stuff. And
Sure.
I just thought
Sure.
maybe board games grow because of like people who always want to be productive and have a purpose, that board game could be
Mm,
a really soft intro to working together
yeah.
smoothly.
I mean, I think the analogy I've used in board games, for people who, may be very familiar with games or not, but like if you think about like media or just like, film and TV, television, like there's really almost something for everybody.
Hmm.
You have like historical dramas, you have, well-researched documentaries, you have the guilty pleasures, you have the horrors. Because there's something for everyone, I feel like board games are kind of the same. So
Yeah.
I think it's almost a misnomer sometimes when people say like, "What's your favorite game?"
Yeah.
It's kind of like, "What's your favorite show?" But I mean, sometimes you're in the mood for something like nice and cozy. Maybe you're in the mood for like something scary. Maybe you're looking for like something that's good for the family. And so I think my answer to that question, like, "What's your favorite game?" tends to be kind of depends what you're in the mood for. And there's really something for everybody. And so kind of to go back to your comment about kind of
Do you
like
have a purpose
a
for your
purpose,
game?
like I
Yeah.
think it fulfills so many. I think there's just so
Mm.
much out there that it could cheer you up when you're sad, or when you want like a real brain burner challenge, or when you just want to enjoy like a one-on-one with a partner, like, a two-player game for a date night. So I think it serves so many levels, and I think it's a matter of just finding it. So
Oh.
I think the right question is like, what game did you enjoy playing recently? And it's like, who do you think
Mm.
that game is good for and for what? And like when you're in the mood for. I think that's probably like a more productive conversation, right? Because then
Yeah,
it
well
kind of
said.
gets you thinking.
Well said. So this is table for two. This is where strangers become friends and friends turn into family. If you haven't noticed, Ron, it just happens. And these are our founders. We would love for you to join our board game community. Check us out on tablefor2.games. This is all the ways that we can reach Ronald, his website, his Facebook, YouTube. I know that you don't do that much on those. Those are kind of personal, but maybe somebody has a game idea, something they want to run past you, get some help with. This is a way to reach you or find
Yeah,
you, right?
absolutely. I'm sure you could message me on one of these. It'll get to me.
Yeah,
And I mean, if not me, like there are lots of great resources out there that talks about, how to get into games. Do you
including
self-publish?
us.
Do you pitch? Exactly. And there's just so much out there. And so, I mean, I think that's the great part of it. Like, I think it's just finding the right avenue, the right resource, the right
Mhm.
medium. And so, yeah. Yeah.
This is how you get a hold of Table for Two, how you find us, our website, our social medias. We do interviews like this all the time on board game creators, and you can find that on our YouTube channel, Table for Two. Thank you so much, Ron.
Thanks for having me.